Hello, welcome to Bob's Dungeon. My name's Bob, I'll be your host. Information in your games is pretty important, and there are lots of ways you can go about getting information for your games. Information for different things you can do, campaign ideas, story ideas, so forth. One of the biggest ways people use to gain information for their games is looking online to find information on campaign settings that they'd like to try, incorporating things into their game, alternate class ideas, weapon ideas, and so forth. Other places you could look is you can take inspiration from your favorite novels and try to incorporate that in, TV shows, movies, and so forth. Long time ago, they used to have magazines that have information in them on games. There was Dungeon Magazine and Dragon Magazine and a bunch of others that had information that you could incorporate into your games, campaign ideas, story ideas, adventure ideas, so forth. And when Wizards of the Coast took over Dungeons and Dragons, they kept printing the Dragon Magazine, and it had information that you could use in your games. And when they acquired the license to do Star Wars role-playing game, they came out with a magazine called the Star Wars Gamer. And that's what we're going to talk about in this video. We're going to talk about Star Wars Gamer magazine. There are 10 issues in this magazine series, and we're not going to look at them individually, but there are 10 issues broken up into 2 volumes. Volume 1 consists of issues 1 to 6. Volume 2 consists of the latter 4 issues. And these magazines just looked at all kinds of information for Star Wars games. It looked at what was out as far as Star Wars video games were concerned, what was coming out, what was new, tips, and so forth. I was never big on video games, so that didn't interest me in these. It had information on the customizable card game that was out at the time, and I played that a little bit, but I wasn't very impressed with it, and really never played it after that, so that didn't interest me. But their main focus in these magazines were on the role-playing game, and that did interest me. So I bought these magazines so I'd have extra little things I could add into my games. And one of the things in these magazines is they have, in each issue, they have a story or two, a little bit of fiction that you could read and glean ideas from. They'd also have a section of character portraits that you could look at and gain some inspiration for the character portraits on your character sheets. Other little things they had in these was they would have a new race in each issue that you could add to your game. Some of these races actually did wind up appearing in books later on down the road. They didn't early on, but after the revised edition of the rules came out in the Saga edition, the races that were in these magazines started appearing. And there were races from like the old Marvel comics of the 70s and 80s, and some of the novels and so forth. And another thing they did in these magazines was they gave you a new prestige class that you could add to your game. And again, like the races, these prestige classes found their ways into normal books later on down the road. And they also did a really neat thing and would show you how to build certain types of characters, like the mercenary. Tell you how to multi-class with different classes to gain a mercenary, or how to multi-class your classes to come up with a field medic, or a delante, and a bunch of other different things, which is pretty neat. And they'd also have little charts and stuff in here that you could use. Stuff like random ship names, random cargoes that you can find in ships, and stuff like that. Some of the issues even had ships that you could add to your games, which is very neat. And as they went on, they covered different topics and added a bunch of other stuff. And they were pretty neat for what they were. And in some issues, they would even feature little bitty mini games that you could play. In one, they had like a pod racer game that you could use with your dice and easily slide into your role playing game. And some of the others, they'd have other little mini games, and they'd come with a poster sized map as a game board for those games, which is very cool. At one point, they had a little Hoth battle simulator game, and it had the big map like that, and had little pieces that you can photocopy and move around the map. And then later on, they came out with a version of the Silent Death game. Silent Death was a little miniatures ship-to-ship combat game, and they adapted it over for Star Wars and gave you a little map and markers that you can photocopy and use. And they started off in one issue, and then in the next issue they added a bunch more ships and focused it on the prequel ships and added some more rules. And then after that, they came out with a version for the new Jedi Order where you could go up against the Yuuzhan Vong, and added some more rules. So that was all pretty cool. They even had, in each issue, they have a couple of adventures that you could run in your games. And at one point, they even started doing little campaigns that you could use in your Star Wars games. And they'd come with, again, the poster maps for the campaign settings. If I could open it. So that you'd have key locations and stuff for the campaign. And this one was pretty cool. It was on a water world where they sunk a Trade Federation ship as a little city. So, you know, a lot of cool stuff in these if you're willing to look. But at one point, they ran their course and they quit publishing them after 10 issues. And there was some neat information. And there was also a lot that they were trying to hawk as well. That's the point in some of these magazines. But they were pretty cool for what they were worth. Which brings me to 3 questions. Would I use the information that was in these magazines in my games? And I'd have to say yes. Yes, I would. Yes, I have. Would I play a character using the information from these magazines? Yeah, I probably would if I was going to play in a D20 Star Wars game. There was some pretty neat information. Most of it I liked the campaign stuff, but would I recommend these magazines? Probably not. Most of the stuff you could probably find online now anyway. And the rest of it was incorporated into books that they published. So there's really no use for them now except for maybe like collector's items. And that's really all there is to them. They were neat when they were out. They gave you a little bit of extra stuff and some ideas. And that was about it. So thank you for joining me at a look at these magazines. And hopefully you'll join me next time where we'll talk about something else. Bye.